Hi YouTube, welcome back to Wtf Rc Cars. So today I'm going to show you how to flash EdgeTX firmware onto the PL18. It's a very similar process on the PL18 EV as well. There is a few limitations, so you've only got 8 megabytes of memory to use as the SD card, so you won't be able to have the sound files. The PL18 doesn't have audio routed anyway, so you'd have to modify it to get audio out of it, so it's not really that big of an issue. There's also no real-time clock battery in the PL18, so you'd have to source one and solder it onto board. There is tabs for it. There's no multi-output module in it, and it won't support the standard FRM 301. But it does support the 303, so you can attach that to the back of your PL18 and you can use other modules as well. And I think lastly, the 8 megabyte of storage issue, you can upgrade the actual chip, so you can unsolder, it's only 8 legs, and you can solder a bigger chip in if you want, give you more storage. But I'll take you through how to actually update it, and then I'll show you how to restore it back to Flysky. I'll put a link to the original guide that I've referenced on GitHub. I think it's Risto, wrote the original guide or updated it in December 2023. But it's quite a good guide. There is a few steps missing out of it, like when you select which device is the STM bootloader, which I'll add in my video. But it is pretty self-explanatory, and yeah, let's bring you in for a close-up look and see how we go. Right, so there's a few things we're going to need to do to prepare the transmitter for being updated. Firstly, you need to remove the little rubber thing on this side. That's so we can get to the DFU button and the hard reset. Then you're going to have to flip your transmitter over and remove the transmission module. So if you've got the little alloy plate, there's the 2 screws, and then you just press button and release it. Then we want a fully wired micro USB lead connected, but don't connect that to the computer at the moment. And if we just power this up, we can see we're on standard Flysky firmware. And if I remember where it is on this one, if we go in and have a look, we're on 1072 standard. So once we've got the transmitter ready, we can power that back down. Then we need to go over to PC and create a few folders. So for me, I've got my Assistant V3 folder, and then a PL18 folder where I've got the backup of the memories from the PL18. So you want to create a folder for your bootloader. And then I find it handy to create a folder for the STM software. So once we've got these, we need to open one of the links that I've put in the description, and this is to the STM32 programmer software. So once you get on here, you can click get software, get the one relevant to what you're running. So I'm going to go for 64-bit version. You have to accept the terms, and for me, because I've already made an account on here, it will let me download it. If you haven't got an account, it'll ask you to create one, or you can create a guest one. Basically, you just have to put your put your email address and details. It'll send you an email, and you just verify it, and you'll be able to download the software. So once we've got the software installed, you're going to extract it. It's probably better if you have WinRAR installed. We can delete that, we don't need it. Then you just need to double click on the software, get a quick UAC prompt. And then we'll get a splash screen, and we just need to click through and get the software installed.
you don't have to click anything special with the options on that, just use what's provided. You will get another box click up, and we just need to let it install. So you can change any defaults where you want it to save or anything. But I'm just going to run it completely as stock. Now you will get these two little icons appear on your desktop if you've selected the option for them. So all I'm going to do is just drag them into that folder so we know where they are. You've got the software installed, so we don't need it anymore. We can delete that and just keep the programmer and the package creator. So next step is to get our actual transmitter into a bootable mode so the software can read it. So what you're going to do, so we're going to press and hold the DFU button down. You're going to get your USB cable and connect it to the PC. You should hear the PC make a sound that it's detected the transmitter. Then we're going to open the actual programmer. And first time you open it, you'll get a prompt come up. So we can just click on that. You'll then get the program open. We want to select USB from the drop down menu, and then make sure we've got USB connected. Now we should be able to click connect. Basically you're looking for the flash size and that it's the Cortex M4. Once we've got that detected, we need to read out the actual file that's the Flysky firmware. So once we've got the radio actually detected, we can check and make sure the address is correct, and then we just need to change the actual size that we're looking at. So if we set that to 0x2 and then 0000000, and then what we're looking to do is read the actual flash. So we're basically just reading the parts that is the bootloader. Once we've got this read, we can save as. Go into his bootloader backup file. And basically you can rename this to anything you like. The actual original guide that I found on GitHub advises name it to PL18_factory.bin, which makes a lot of sense. Then we want to save that. So once we've got that saved, we can go into his folder and make sure it's about a 2 meg file. That's what you're looking for. Then we can disconnect from his transmitter, and then you can go to your Windows eject menu and eject the STM32 bootloader. It'll tell you it's safe to disconnect. You can press the hard reset, disconnect your USB, and if you try and power it back up, you should get the Flysky software back on. So we'll power that down. Next, what we're going to be looking to do is update it to EdgeTX so we can close this software. Then we're going to be going to buddyedgetx.org, so I'll put the link for this one in as well. So once we're on here, you want to include pre-release, select the latest release, wait for it to populate the model. So Flysky PL18. We now need to press our DFU button, keep it held in, and connect our USB again. You should then hear Windows Connect and it'll make the noise that it's detecting the actual transmitter. Then we can go to flash via USB. Now if you don't see the STM32 bootloader here, you can go to add new device and just scroll up and down, and it will show up as STM32 bootloader. You can just click on that and click connect, and it will add it into this menu if it already says connect, or if you've added it you just need to highlight it and click next. Then it's going to tell you that you're flashing the firmware EdgeTX latest version, and you're flashing it to the radio, so you can select start flashing. It'll quickly download. It's erasing the actual firmware chip on the transmitter itself, and all this time you'll see nothing on the transmitter at all. It just remains blank. Then we get to write in the new firmware, and there are a number of limitations with the stock hardware from what I've found. So there's no battery for the real-time clock, which there is the solder pads and everything on the board in the PL18, so you can solder that in. There's also no direct route for audio, because Flysky use a pre-programmed chip to deal with the actual audio itself. You can do a mod to reroute the audio. The onboard flash memory is only 8 megabytes, so you've not got a lot of storage. So as we go through this, I'll show you there's not really any room for the sound files or anything anyway. You can upgrade the flash chip. There's only 8 legs to solder, so it's not that difficult. But this is just a quick guide showing you how to get the actual stock firmware on there. Please don't power down your radio or anything while it's doing this, else you will brick it, and then you've got to go through trying to unbrick your radio, which is a very similar process. If you get an error where it says it can't erase the actual chip when it's trying to flash this, it's worth going through Flysky Assistant, update your transmitter to the same firmware version that I've got, and then re-put it into DFU mode and retry this part, and it will go through for you. It was one of the issues I had when I was first trying this out. I do like to try not to skip any of these bits in case you're following along wondering how long it takes, or you think, can I unplug it? No, leave it. It doesn't actually take that long in grand scheme of things. So we're almost done. So once you've got to 100%, it'll tell you flashing's done. You can then click set up SD card. So if we get the actual transmitter, now what I would do is press the software reset button, disconnect your transmitter, plug it back into USB and power the transmitter back on. You'll get a storage warning, bad or missing radio data. That's absolutely fine, so we can just click through that. And then we want to click USB storage. You'll come up with a warning saying you need to format drive on your PC, so you can just format it, leave everything as stock. And this is basically because we're repurposing the flash chip as an SD. So we can see it's picking it up as USB-G. Now you can download the actual files, or you can stay on this page, select SD, select drive G, click view files. Are you sure it's your SD card? Yes. So again, include pre-release, select the latest, select your transmitter, apply changes. You can click on details to see what it's actually doing. If you do get the sound data options, don't click on it because it won't fit on your storage. So depending on which version you click, you can get sound data showing up here, and you get different language packs. If you don't click on any of them, it won't try and install any of them. But there are available links on this site where you can download all this yourself and manually copy it over. But once that's finished, we can close out of everything. You should then be able to power cycle your transmitter. So we can unplug our USB cable. So it'll run you through calibration. So to start it, we can start calibration. You just need to center all your pots, all your levers and everything, then move them to the extremes. Just to allow it to calibrate the full movement. And there you have it. You've got your functioning EdgeTX software, and you can go through and set everything up and do whatever you want to do in EdgeTX. So the next issue we've got is, once you've got it set up like this, how do you put it back to normal? So let's work you through that one. So we're going to press and hold our DFU button. We're going to plug in our USB. Let go of the DFU button. Then we're going to open up the STM software. So once we've got the software open, you want to click on this icon. We're going to browse to where we saved as bootloader. So as factory.bin, we've got that now loaded up. We can connect via USB, make sure we're seeing the correct controller, and for this one I like to tell it to verify programming afterwards. So we can start programming. It's now erasing the actual flash chip on the PL18. And again, this entire time you'll not have anything to see on the PL18 itself. But this is why we need to back up the actual bootloader first. So it should now be sending our Flysky original bootloader back to the PL18. Once you do have EdgeTX software on, you can browse the internal memory just by connecting the controller and selecting USB mode. So you can change all the EdgeTX files and everything. You can add to it, delete, clear space, whatever you need to do. The space is limited on the PL18. So it says it's all verified. So you will have a message saying downloaded and verified. You'll also get a file download complete. So once we OK them, you can disconnect, close the software, and if you go to your Windows USB, you can safely eject the STM32 bootloader. Then you need to press the hard reset, and we can disconnect our USB from PC. We can power up the transmitter, and it should say Flysky splash screen, and then we need to restore the firmware. So if you click OK on that, and then we plug in our USB. You then want to open your Flysky Assistant software. And I will cut this bit out because, yeah, the Assistant software is not the speediest of creations. So you'll get a box saying you're connecting to a server for about 10 to 15 minutes sometimes. Sometimes it's a little bit quicker. But I'll wait till that's connected and then we'll carry on. So once the software loads, you can see the device is online, and we just need to click Update Firmware. Click as Update, choose whichever firmware you want, press Continue, and then it'll start updating the actual firmware. It's quite quick to download. It's pretty slow to actually put it on the transmitter itself. But once it's downloaded, it will then start reapplying your full firmware to the actual PL18. And at this time, you'll just get the screen saying do not operate remote during firmware update. So we're at 1% now, and I'm sure you don't want to sit there watching how slow this is to install, so I'll cut to the last bit. So at this point we're at 96% writing the firmware back. It does take a while, so just bear with it. It's not the fastest thing. But once this is done, you should have a fully operable PL18 on Flysky firmware again. Nice to be able to swap back and forth between the two if you want to tinker with it. So you will see the transmitter go off. Then it'll start up on the Flysky firmware. If we click refresh, it's going to moan at me because I haven't put module back in. It should restart and you should have your model memories back on. If you haven't, you can just click in to import Wtf, and you can just go back to where you've got the actual model memory stored. So that's PL18. I've done plenty of other videos on how you back up your memories, but because we copied the flash, the memories are already on mine. But you can just tick the ones you want, click add, and then OK, and it'll just write your model memories back. And as always, when you're updating firmware, it's worth running through calibration just to make sure all your dials and your sticks are calibrated again. At least copying the memories over doesn't really take very long. So you just need to go through your calibration, make sure everything's centered, move everything to its maximum. And then when you back out, it should say calibration successful, and then you can carry on using your Flysky transmitter. Just poke the rubber bit back on, and you just need to reattach your transmission module. But that's just a quick guide to show you how to modify it to EdgeTX and how to put it back to Flysky firmware. So let's wrap this one up.
So there you have it. That's how you install EdgeTX on the PL18. Not sure how much use it'd be on an unmodified PL18, but at least you know how to install it and how to revert it back. It is quite important that you make a backup of your bootloader, because you're not going to be able to restore it back to Flysky firmware. If you're heavily modifying it, upgrading the chip and that, you probably don't want to restore it back anyway. But I have put a link to all the software that I've used and the original guide, so credit to the guys that wrote the original guide for it and the OpenTX firmware guys. They've done a great job of getting it working on the PL18. As I say, not really sure how much use it's going to be, but if you're looking at this mod and you just want a guide to let you know how to do it so you can revert it, that's kind of what I've done this for. If you're looking at getting EdgeTX on something, you're quite hands-on in modifying stuff anyway, so you know what you're looking for. But thanks again for watching Wtf Rc Cars. If you like this kind of content, don't forget to like and subscribe, hit the notification bell, share to friends and family, and catch you guys again in the next one.